so restless when the track hits my soul. Restless to the point I lose control. I get so restless. Feel that body heat.
Hello and welcome to section 2 of my course. In this course we'll be concentrating on the melodic parts, how to actually write in bass lines, melodies, chords, adding vocals, vocal production. And for this specific video we're going to be looking at the bass line. I'm going to split this up into various different videos. So for this one we're going to actually look at selecting the right sounds, some of the plugins that I like to use, some of the synthesizers I like to use, and some of the sounds, actually creating sounds as well, just a bit of basic synthesizer programming. We're going to be looking at synthesizer programming in depth in a later video. Synthesizer programming is something that I'm quite passionate about, so you know I would like to get into more detail there. But for now, we're just going to be doing the very simple, finding the right sound, even looking at presets. So let's look at the bass line. We have our basic groove. Very basic. The reason why I've kept it basic is because it's not, how can I put it? It's not actually telling me what to play in. Sometimes when you've got a groove and you've got too many elements going on in the drums, it actually like dictates what you can do with the rest of the elements. Whereas I think with a simple, fat, sort of straightforward beat like this, you can go wherever you want. And that's the idea. Maybe at some point in this course we might go back to the drums and add some more groove. And also I think sometimes percussive elements can actually be part of the melodics, which we will be looking at in this section of the course. So, bass line. Okay, sounds. Let me look at the first go-to synth that I always look at. And that would be, if I create a new instrument here. Now, it's something that's very overlooked. And I think the reason why people overlook it is because it's so simple. It's the ESP. Okay? ESP, it's got very few features. It reminds me actually of a kind of stripped down Roland SH101, which is a synthesizer that I've owned and loved for like 25 years now. I got one when it first came out in 1983, and I've had one ever since. So that's probably longer, isn't it? 30 years. So it reminds me a bit of that, and the reason why I like it is because it's so simple, but yet it's really fat. It's just one of those synths that it's really easy to get the kind of sound you want, and you don't spend hours messing around tweaking it. It is very basic though, so let's get into it. Anyway, it boots up with a sound like this. Excuse me, I'm playing from a controller keyboard, so let's turn that down. So let's make a sound. Okay, I'm just going to start with this basic default setting. I don't want any resonance. Already it's better. We've got to, you can hear that the harder I hit it, so we've got quite a lot of velocity to filter there, i.e. the sound gets brighter the harder I hit it. There's no velocity on volume, you can see there. If there was, maybe we can adjust that later. I like it. There's a nice range of sounds from the same synth. It's a bit too tonal for me, so let's turn down these waveforms. That's the beautiful thing about the ESP, is that it's a one oscillator synth and you mix all the different waveforms together to create your own unique wave, basically. So there's nothing there. Let's have a look. This is just a square wave, but it's a higher square wave, so let's go to this. So you've got 3 different square waves that you can mix together. Nice and punchy, isn't it? See, it's mainly due to the overdrive here. If we take the overdrive off at the end, it's quite wimpy, but the overdrive really sort of fattens it, and it is actually the algorithm from the overdrive plugin in Logic, which, as we know, emulates tape saturation, and as we discussed before, tape saturation is a form of compression. So what we're getting there is a bit of saturation. We're getting perceived loudness again. If I turn that off. Yeah, we're getting perceived loudness. Very simple ADSR envelope, attack, decay, sustain and release. Now we've got the boom. Now the ADSR initial, that is basically how much of the filter is affected by the envelope. If I turn that to 0, for instance, none of it's affected by the envelope at all. And then the only parameter that actually works on the filter is the frequency cutoff itself. So this is applying modulation to the filter cutoff via the envelope. Now, I like that. Okay, I like that. That's nice. So let's save this. And we can just press save. And it takes us to ESP. Let's actually call it Dean Square Bass 2. You can see that we've already got one saved as Dean Square Bass. I like the sound. Okay, so there's the sound. I like that. It's a nice sort of fat square. We maybe put a bit of release. That's really nice. Okay, I like that. Some added features in here. Just tuning. Right, nice and simple, right? Okay, so another instrument that I really like, another plugin, is by a company called Spectrasonics, and it's named Trillian. Now, for those of you that know, Trillian was it superseded a plugin called Trilogy. Trilogy was made in the early 2000s by a company called Spectrasonics, which was amazing. I think they licensed the engine of Trilogy, so what they decided to do was make their own engine and update the plugin. And it's great because of the detail that these guys have gone into. You know, look at all the category, the type, the model, you know, all the synths that they've actually sampled and all the basses they've actually sampled, complexity, etc. It's anal, man. So let's go. Synth bass, let's have a look. I really like this big boy Oscar. Excuse me, I'm playing a MIDI keyboard again. Okay, I really like that. You can see there's like some notes about the synthesizer, there's all tags. It's complex, man. So let's have a look. But if we actually open up our Square Bass, we can see the comparison, the similarities between the two synths. Now, in this page here, we've got the envelopes. This has got the simple ADSR envelope. You know, simple. Whereas this one's got, you know, a 4-part envelopes there. So not only have we got one for the filter, we've got one for the amp separately, whereas this affects both the amp and the filter in this plugin. Let me just name this. I'm going to call this Trillian so I don't get confused. Oh, no, Trillian. Okay. So you can see that the filter there, the envelope mirrors the ADSR initial there. Yeah, that's the amount of which the filter is cut off by the envelope. You can see there if I open the decay. It's nice because that just gives you a little click. That's what I like about this sound. It's got a little... Great, right? You can layer sounds together. You can see that this one has only got, in the mix function over here, you can see that there's only one sound actually in the mix. If I click that, it will actually play the other sound, although there's nothing programmed there. So we're just concentrating on the 1A sound. It's got some great... You know, I can... I can have this harmonia in there, which basically gives it, it's basically a pitch shifter. Yeah. Excuse my playing. I am actually playing with my left hand. Now, there's a bass line I played in earlier. I really like that. Not to say that we're going to use that bass line for this track, but it was just put in there just for the purpose of showing you the kind of sounds I want to use for this particular track. harmonia is really nice because you can pan each different pitch shift. We can actually, there's 2 fine tunes at the end there. Now, if I want to, I can combine those 2 sounds together. In the olden days, in the olden days of Logic, so to speak, you would have to copy that part onto there. You'd have to do it like that. Whereas now, you don't have to do that at all. You can simply select both tracks, and we go to track, and we say create track stack. Obviously, we use a summing stack again. Now, this works just in the same way as the kick did, but what it does, it allows you to be able to... So there's our summing stack, so we'll call this bassline. And what this allows you to do, if I just mute this part in the arrangement here, you can hear this now lets me play both of those instruments in one go. How beautiful is that? That is just amazing, isn't it? I mean, you were always able to do it with Logic, but to be able to just play the 2 sounds together. And of course, they both then are routed to this bassline auxiliary here, which automatically gets defaulted with the compressor. We can actually then, set up a little bit of compression on there, turn it on, turn the auto gain off, yeah. Just put a little bit of compression on just to control the whole thing. And there we have 2 sounds together that we've made and found and tweaked. Beautiful. There we go. Now, that was just a basic showing you 2 plugins that I like to work with. 2 very simple plugins and giving you a simple bass line. There's another plugin I really like, and that is by a guy called Rob Papen. Let's actually, that's not the right key command. Let's create a new software instrument. Now, there's 2 ways of creating a software instrument. We can either use this way, and I'll undo that, or I can simply select a software instrument in the workspace and then double click underneath it. Okay, that's a bit quicker than having to do all the key commands and move around. So that gives me the next incremental software instrument. Okay, let me go over here to instruments, and we go to AU instruments. We're going to go to Papen SubBoomBass. Now, this is potentially my favorite plugin, because it's a mixture of Trillian, which can be a little complicated at times, and doesn't always work that well because of memory restrictions, especially if you're using Logic 9, and a cross between Trillian and the ESP, which is a little bit simple sometimes. You just want that little bit more extra control. So this is great. You can see that it's a 2 oscillator synth, oscillator 1 there, oscillator 2, feeding through a filter that goes. This is the distortion before the filter. The filter is very comprehensive, all the different filter types, vocal comb filters, and there's the envelope for the filter there, over onto the amp envelope, which is there. Great, quite simple. You can check. There's a sub oscillator for each oscillator. You can choose different waveforms. It's got very interesting waveforms because not only does it have the usual sine, triangle, square, sawtooth, it's also got samples of tom drums and frame drums, like you can see there. There's one samples. Look at all the different samples that you can use as an oscillator, so to speak. So you can step out of the conventional with it. This is really good. And then you can move down into this section here. If you want to, you can set up a little step sequence if you want, which is amazing. And there are lots of presets that utilize this step sequencer environment. But then you've got free mode here, so you've got a separate envelope where you can control things like pitch. You can get pitch sweeps on each sound. You can control whatever the hell you want, basically, with an extra envelope and an extra LFO, sorry. And then you've got this matrix at the end where you can, there's lots of modulation, routing options on this, along with the usual unison, detune, portamento, etc., etc. So it's really good, and not only has it got all the right features, but it sounds great. And rather than me sort of showing you, let's have a look. We can just have a listen to some of the sound. Again, I'm playing on my MIDI keyboard. Great. Okay, so some of the bass, some of the sub-bass sounds are great. Bass presets. So let's copy this part over and see what we can come up with sound-wise. A little hard. Nice, right? What I tend to do with bass sounds is find a preset that I kind of like, and then I'll go in and tweak it. That's nice. That's really nice. Okay, so let's turn that down. First thing I've noticed about it is too much release on the amp envelope. That's great. There's obviously no filter on there. Let me have a look. The filter envelope is effective. That's lovely. Now the reason why that sounds like it does is because it's actually we're using an FM. Oscillator 2 is modulating oscillator 1. So really like that. Let's look at the pre-filter distortion. A bit harsh. Nice. I really like that. So I love that sound. Okay, we've already got the pattern there. What we're now going to do, if we can add this sound, which is the, let's call it sub-boom. Into this track stack, and we do that by simply dragging it and plopping it in the middle there, and it becomes part of this track stack, which now we can amazing, right? And those three bass sounds come through the same auxiliary, and I'll treat like one sound. If I want to play it on the controller keyboard, there's the three synths. And you can mute them out of the arrangement. Instant fatness. Great, right? Right, let's save it. Okay, and now once we've got our track stack, we really like this. Let's call this, we'll call this bassline idea. You know what? Before we do save it, I'm going to go to one of these plugins. I think let me just solo one. This one we can put a little bit of delay on. We'll use some of the delay that we've already set up, the 8th delay. There's a little bit too much feedback on there. And what I would like to do as well is spread that delay by using this stereo spreader. Actually, no, we'll go to, spreader. Here we go. Awesome. And that's just on the one sound. Obviously, I need to unmute these. Take this out of solo, sorry. So. Beautiful, right? So that one track stack there, when I press the key, plays all three bass lines. Only one of them has got a little bit of delay on. Now I can go to my library, which is over here. and I can now save this track stack. Okay, we'll call this instrument, we'll call this Dean's Fat Bass Man. Which we can then use at any other time later on for any other productions. You know, we've made that sound. Why not use it again? Okay, why don't you try some of those techniques and things I showed you, and join me in the next video where we're going to be actually writing the bass line. Although we've got a simple bass line there, I want to show you a few other ideas and techniques of doing it.
I get so restless when the track hits my soul. Restless to the point I lose control. I get so restless. Feel that body heat.